you got to work, you were called into Mr. Longstreet's office, isn't that right?
Yes.
And in Mr. Longstreet's office, him and Haley Floyd were asking you questions, isn't that right?
I believe so, yes.
And they were asking you about the wristbands used at Rock the Roll.
Yes, they were.
They asked you whether or not the ones they were showing you were the correct wristbands, right?
Yes.
And they also asked you about Cameron Poole. Is that also right?
Yes, they did.
So they asked you about questions about the wristbands, but then also about Cameron Poole, correct? Just for clarification.
Yes.
Did they at all ask you about Whit Bowman? Besides, they didn't ask you any questions about Ms. Bowman, did they?
No, I don't believe so.
And then later on in the day, like you said on direct examination, Whit Bowman came up to you and switched rides with you, isn't that right?
Yes, when she told me that once she stopped and go home.
Actually, hold on one moment. Let me go step back a little bit. Now, when you were trained at the Tunnel of Terror, you were trained at the maintenance lever as well as a stop button, is that right?
The maintenance server puts the right and black on.
Right. And you also, on your first day, made a mistake, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did.
Instead of hitting the stop button, you pulled that with the maintenance lever, right?
Yes, I did.
And then put it into blackout mode, right?
Yes.
Now, is Whit Bowman, is his primary ride the Tunnel of Terror?
No, she does not work at Tunnel of Terror.
So, is it possible that somebody who isn't used to the controls of the Tunnel of Terror, is it possible that a mistake can be made?
Objection, Your Honor. This question calls for speculation.
What's your response?
I'm not asking the witness to go into anybody's state of mind except her own. In her opinion, is it possible that somebody can make a mistake? I'm not going into the state of mind of any other people.
What's your response, Counselor?
If he's asking for her to testify, is it possible for anyone else besides yourself to make a mistake? That is calling for that exactly what he's saying it doesn't call for.
May I respond?
Someone else's state of mind, whether they could do it on accident, not whether she could. She already testified she did it on accident. She can't testify whether it's possible someone else's state of mind can make it happen.
Your response?
I'm asking the witness to use the best of her knowledge of whether or not it is possible that a mistake be made at the ride. And now that does not go to the admissibility of the statement, but rather the weight of it and how the jury decides to find that statement of her personal knowledge, not anybody else's knowledge of that.
I don't see this going into someone's state of mind just by making a mistake, asking if mistakes are possible. There's not necessarily a state of mind, so objection to it.
Okay, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Let me repeat the question.
Yes.
So in your opinion, as a former ride operator of the Tunnel of Terror, is it possible, or it is possible that somebody can make a mistake if they're new to that ride, isn't that right?
Yes, it is true.
Now, I'd also like to talk to you about the day that you, the conversation you overheard on your way out. So, you were told by Ms. Bowman that you could leave early based on Longstreet's statements, isn't that right?
Yes.
So on your way out, you wanted to thank Mr. Longstreet for letting you out early, isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
But he was busy.
Yes, he was talking.
He was talking with Haley Floyd. And with Haley Floyd, he asked Haley Floyd, is that if the police saw their accounting records,
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Hearsay to the accounting records, is that what's the hearsay statement?
Hearsay to the statement from J.C. Longstreet about any accounting records.
Yeah,
the witness will then make an offer of proof first.
you mean,
By answering the question, the witness will go on to say that, yes, Mr. Longstreet asked Haley Floyd whether or not the accounting records would be okay. The question is not an assertion in this case, so therefore it cannot be considered hearsay based on the definition that hearsay is to prove the truth of the matter asserted, not questioned.
can you repeat the question you asked the witness one more time?
Yes, J.C. Longstreet asked Haley Floyd whether or not if the police saw the accounting records, if everything would be okay.
So, Mr. Longstreet, is that the name, right?
Yes.
He's asking a question,
Yes.
then I don't see hearsay. Objection to overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
So Mr. Longstreet asked Haley Floyd, the accountant, whether or not if the police saw the accounting records, if everything would be okay. Isn't that right?
Yes, he did.
And in your opinion, Mr. Floyd seemed pretty confident in that.
Yes, she answered the question.
But to join back to my question, him or the accountants seemed pretty confident that everything would be okay.
Yes,
Now moving on to your current job. You work at Chuggy's Bar, isn't that right?
yes, I do, more personally.
And you do like it much better than Rockwood, right?
I do.
It's understandable. Now, at Chuggy's Bar, you occasionally see some people that used to work with at Rockwood, correct?
Yes,
And in one instance, specifically, you saw your former boss, Mr. Longstreet, and Mr. Floyd, isn't that correct?
yes,
They went and they sat at a back table in the bar, isn't that right?
yes.
But they didn't stay very long, did they?
No,
In fact, somebody came in and sat at their table as well, a third person. Isn't that right?
yes,
And that third person you believe to be Cameron Poole.
yes, but I couldn't really be sure. It's kind of hard to see anything visible, we're passing through back and forth.
But in your opinion, it looked like it could have been Cameron Poole.
Yes,
And this person who looked like Cameron Poole went to their table and sat down next to them briefly. Isn't that right?
yes, it did.
But then under the table, there was a duffel bag. Isn't that right?
Yes, there was.
And they didn't meet very quickly, but just to clarify for the court, you saw Mr. Longstreet, Mr. Floyd, and Cameron Poole all meeting about 3 weeks after the robbery occurred,
Yes,
and there was a duffel bag with them, correct?
yes, there was.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just